Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my review of Charles Fort's The Book of the Damned. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, which is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. Also, please check out the links to friends of the show in every episode description. Both Jen, the Arcane Observer, co-host of this show, she has her own channel, as well as Michael Strange and Trouble Minds Radio. Both the show and the network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear Trouble Minds, as well as this show, Salsido Paranormal, and many other great shows, 24/7. So, we are continuing on with this book here, and I don't know when these shows are going to come out, but we will keep going with this book over time whenever I'm able to do so, and keep putting out more of these shows. So, and they'll be probably at some point, I will start putting out one of these shows per week, along with the experiences shows, the true paranormal stories on the web. So, let me find where I was at, and we'll get right to it. So, I'm just going to go right here. Read the last paragraph I read last time. It says, the writer abandons the first or absolute. Oh, and also this is talking about another previous journal or work of nonfiction, talking about events. The writer abandons the first or absolute exclusion and modifies it with the explanation that the day before a reported fall of stones in Tuscany, June 16th, 1794, there had been an eruption of Vesuvius. Or that stones do fall from the sky, but that they are stones that have been raised to the sky from some other part of the Earth's surface by whirlwinds or by volcanic action. It's more than 120 years later. I know of no aerolite that has ever been acceptably traced to terrestrial origin. Falling stones had to be condemned, though still with a reservation that held out for exclusion of outside forces. One may have the knowledge of a Lavoisier and still not be able to analyze, not be able to even to see, except conformably with the hypnosis or the conventional reactions against hypnosis of one's era. We believe no more. We accept. Little by little, the whirlwind and volcano explanations had to be abandoned. But so powerful was this exclusion hypnosis, sentence of damnation, or this attempt at positiveness, that far into our own times, some scientists, notably Professor Lawrence Smith and Sir Robert Ball, continued to hold out against all external origins, asserting that nothing could fall to this earth unless it had been cast up or whirled up from some other part of this earth's surface. It's as commendable as anything ever has been, by which I mean it's intermediate to the commendable and the censurable. It's virginal. Meteorites, data of which were once of the damned, have been admitted, but the common impression of them is only a retreat of attempted exclusion, that only two kinds of substance fall from the sky: metallic and stony, that the metallic objects are of iron and nickel, butter and paper and wool and silk and resin. We see, to start with, that the virgins of science have fought and wept and screamed against external relations upon two grounds. There, in the first place, are up from one part of this earth's surface and down to another. As late as November 1902, in Nature Notes 13-31, a member of the Selborne Society still argued that meteorites do not fall from the sky, that they are masses of iron upon the ground in the first place, that attract lightning, that the lightning is seen and is mistaken for a falling luminous object. By progress, we mean rape. Sorry for the trigger word there. Butter and beef and blood and a stone with strange inscriptions upon it. And that's where that chapter ends. So, and he's pointing out those odd things at the end there, those words. Those are all things that have apparently, according to reports, fallen from the sky. So that's the end of chapter 2. So let's see here. Starting chapter 3. So then, it is our expression that science relates to real knowledge no more than does the growth of a plant or the organization of a department store or the development of a nation, that all are assimilative or organizing or systematizing processes that represent different attempts to attain the positive state, the state commonly called heaven, I suppose. There can be no real science where there are indeterminate variables, but every variable is, in finer terms, indeterminate or irregular, if only to have the appearance of being in intermediateness is to express regularity unattained. The invariable, or the real and stable, would be nothing at all in intermediateness, rather as, but in relative terms, an undistorted interpretation of external sounds. In the mind of a dreamer could not continue to exist in a dreaming mind, because that touch of relative realness would be of awakening and not of dreaming. Science is the attempt to awaken to realness, wherein it is attempt to find regularity and uniformity, or the regular and uniform would be that which has nothing external to disturb it. By the universal, we mean the real, or the notion is that the underlying super attempt as expressed in science, is indifferent to the subject matter of science. That the attempt to regularize is the vital spirit. Bugs and stars and chemical messes, that they are only quasi-real, and that of them there is nothing real to know, but that systematization of pseudo-data is approximation to realness, or a final awakening, or a dreaming mind and its centaurs and canary birds that turn into giraffes. There could be no real biology upon such subjects, but attempt in a dreaming mind to systematize such appearances would be movement toward awakening. If better mental coordination is all that we mean by the state of being awake, relatively awake. Also, I'm hearing something that sounds a lot like humming right now. Anyway. So it is that having attempted to systematize by ignoring externality to the greatest possible degree, the notion of things dropping in upon this earth from externality is as unsettling and as unwelcome to science as tin horns blowing in upon a musician's relatively symmetric composition, flies alighting upon a painter's attempted harmony, and tracking colors one into another. Suffragist getting up and making a political speech at a prayer meeting. If all things are of a oneness, which is a state intermediate to unrealness and realness, and if nothing has succeeded in breaking away and establishing entity for itself, and could not continue to exist in intermediateness, if it should succeed, any more than could the born still at the same time be the uterine. I, of course, know of no positive difference between science and Christian Science, and the attitude of both toward the unwelcome is the same. It does not exist. Let's see. I'm guessing that was an engine I was hearing somewhere, but it really sounded like humming, so that was kind of weird. Anyway, Lord Kelvin and a Mrs. Eddy, and something not to their liking. It does not exist. Of course not. We intermediates say, but also that in intermediateness, neither is there absolute non-existence. Excuse me. Or a Christian Scientist and a toothache. Neither exists in the final sense. Also, neither is absolutely non-existent. And according to our therapeutics, the one that more highly approximates to realness will win. A secret of power. I think it's another profundity. Do you want power over something? Be more nearly real than it. We'll begin with yellow substances that have fallen upon this earth. We'll see whether our data of them have a higher approximation to realness than have the dogmas of those who deny their existence. That is, as products from somewhere external to this earth. In mere impressionism, we take our stand. We have no positive tests, nor standards. Realism in art, realism in science, they pass away. In 1859, the thing to do was to accept Darwinism. Now many biologists are revolting and trying to conceive of something else. The thing to do was to accept in its day. But Darwinism, of course, was never proved. The fittest survive. What is meant by the fittest? Not the strongest, not the cleverest. Weakness and stupidity everywhere survive. There is no way of determining fitness except in that a thing does survive. Fitness, then, is only another name for survival. Darwinism, that survivors survive. Although Darwinism, then, seems positively baseless or absolutely irrational, its massing of supposed data and its attempted coherence approximate more highly to organization and consistency than did the inchoate speculations that preceded it, or that Columbus never proved that the Earth is round. Shadow of the Earth on the Moon? No one has ever seen it in its entirety. The Earth's shadow is much larger than the Moon. If the periphery of the shadow is curved, but the convex Moon, a straight-edged object, will cast a curved shadow upon a surface that is convex. All the other so-called proofs may be taken up in the same way. It was impossible for Columbus to prove that the Earth is round. It was not required, only that with a higher seeming of positiveness than that of his opponents, he should attempt. The thing to do in 1492 was nevertheless accept that beyond Europe, to the west, were other lands. I offer for acceptance as something concordant with the spirit of this first quarter of quarter of the 20th century. There we go. The expression that beyond this earth are other lands, from which some things, as from America, float things to Europe. As to yellow substances that have fallen upon this earth, the endeavor to exclude extra mundane origins is the dogma that all yellow rains and yellow stones are colored with pollen from this earth's pine trees. Simon's meteorological magazine is especially prudish in this respect and regards as highly improper all advances made by other explainers. Nevertheless, the Monthly Weather Review, May 1877, reports a golden yellow fall of February 27th, 1877, at Peklo, Germany, in which 4 kinds of organisms, not pollen, were the coloring matter. There were minute things shaped like arrows, coffee beans, horns, and discs. They may have been symbols. They may have been objective hieroglyphs. Mere passing fancy. Let it go. In the Annals de Chimie, 85-88. Not sure if I'm saying those names right. Apologize for any mispronunciations. There is a list of rains said to have contained sulfur. I have 30 or 40 other notes. I'll not use one of them. I'll admit that every one of them is upon a fall of pollen. I said, to begin with, that our methods would be the methods of theologians and scientists, and they always begin with an appearance of liberality. I grant 30 or 40 points to start with. I'm as liberal as any of them, or that my liberality won't cost me anything. The enormousness of the data that we shall have. Or just to look over a typical instance of this dogma and the way it works out. In the American Journal of Science, 142-196, we are told of a yellow substance that fell by the bucketful upon a vessel one windless night in June in Pictou Harbor, Nova Scotia. The writer analyzed the substance, and it was found to give off nitrogen and ammonia and an animal odor. Now, one of our intermediatist principles to start with is that so far from positive in the aspect of homogeneousness are all substances that, at least in what is called an elementary sense, anything can be found anywhere. There's a lot more of this paragraph, so we're going to stop right there. So here you have objects again falling from the sky that seem weird, and landing on ships even on windless days. So yeah, we'll continue with this series here and there whenever we're able to, and eventually we'll get through all these books. If y'all have any other nonfiction books that maybe are a lot older, they'd like me to review or read, if I can, I will. And even just authors, I am going to do reviews on just a few authors, just in general, at some point. So we'll do those as well. Thank you all for being here and listening, and I will talk to y'all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.